Welcome everybody. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Martin, for having us involved in your competition. It is a privilege. We have a long history working with you, and it's really great to be here. What I want to talk to you a little bit about today is what we do in the startup space. Obviously, this is very software specific, so I apologize for that up front. We do not do chemical innovation. I apologize to Cecil for that. But we think it's really relevant. And then I also want to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing with the Jobs Fund and some exciting announcements that we're going to be making very soon. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what we're going to be saying here. So if I take a little bit of a step back and just say, why are we doing what we're doing, what I'm about to show you? I think it's been summarized in many ways already today, but I think our economies are certainly on the global stage, on the world stage, and this infographic behind me, and certainly the Economist article is actually a couple of years old now, but still very, very relevant. The bit I really like is the bit at the bottom. And I think Martin actually said it probably better than I could, is that we really do believe in the innovation of the continent, in the innovation of South Africa specifically. Being part of a global company, we really are privileged to be able to see what other countries similar to us around the world are doing. And I'm always pleasantly surprised to see how innovative South Africans are, the type of solutions they come up with. I know there are a couple of people in the room that I've personally worked with who've created some amazing pieces of software. And really, I think that inspires me, my team, and the whole Microsoft South Africa division to make sure that we're not just an American company in South Africa, but we're a South African company in South Africa representing an American set of products and technologies. And that is a very big difference for us personally, and that is honestly why we do what we do. Secondly, I think the world of innovation is changing. It's becoming more accessible. It's becoming easier to be innovative and produce products and technology. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we in software think that is doable and how we're supporting it. I mean, if I look at many of the challenges for the startups, and this is a piece of work that we did with the IDC a good couple of years back, but I think the challenges are still very, very relevant. We kind of broke it down into four aspects. The cost of getting your startup up and going, the capital, the R&D, the venture, as we've talked about. The complexity in many cases is there. You may have the good ideas Martin talked about, but do you really get it off the ground? Sometimes the complexity of actually getting something done, and that's particularly relevant in software sometimes. The support, sometimes you have a great idea, you may be a great innovator, you may be a good technologist, but do you know how to run a business? Many times that trips people up because they get to a certain stage, but they have no idea how to work with finances. They have no idea how to actually market, etc., etc. And then, of course, there's the visibility. Everybody says it doesn't help having a great product, even if it is delivered, if nobody buys it. So you really need to get it out. And these are the universal things that we see come up over and over and over again as we work in the startup space. And of course, there's the ecosystem as well. There is a bunch of different players involved in the startup space. There's the incubators, there's the technologies, there's the entrepreneurs, there's government, there's students, there's investors. It's a melting pot of different people that can drag a startup in many, many different directions. So what did we decide to do about it? Well, one of the things we realized is that we're a software company and we have software. So we thought, well, why don't we do 3 things for startups? And so we started a global program about 4 years ago to do 4 big things for startups. A, provide them access to software, and that is for free. Because we realized that if we could give them the software for free, that will help them not have to pay for software and give them some money to do some of the other things that I talked about. Support them. So can we give them some technology support? How do we, if they're dealing with some type of technology complexity, do we have a way to support them? And then the visibility. If they actually get through that, can we help them co-market their software, et cetera, et cetera. We put some eligibility criteria in place for that. So we said you need to be less than 5 years old. You need to have less than $1 million worth of turnover. And a couple of other, obviously you need to develop software. I mean, it's difficult to do this if you're not developing software because the software won't really help you. We in South Africa have been running this program for about 4 years. We have about 380, over 400 startups we've taken through this, and we have some really good success criteria that we've seen from this. But we've learned a couple of things, and a couple of things that are changing in the IT industry and the software industry specifically. The one I wanted to talk specifically about is this advent, some of you may or may not have heard about this, the advent of what we're calling cloud computing. What's really starting to happen is kind of the traditional world of software was I create a piece of software, I put it in a box and I sell it at a retail store, or I find a way to market it in some way. And really, as we've seen with the advent of social media and many of the new platforms, this is changing. The ability to do this through selling some type of annuity-based software. I'm going to charge you for a service. You're going to pay me 10 Rand a month to get the weather info, or I'm going to charge you for something to get some social analytics. The other very interesting thing about software is that it was sometimes limited, as Herman said, to fighting with the big companies. Because if you wanted to produce very large pieces of software, you needed to buy some servers, you need to have the capital to buy those servers, maybe put it in a data center, pay a hoster to host your servers. So the barrier to cross to really create highly commercial software that can compete with some of the biggest players in the world was a very, very high barrier. And we didn't see many startups actually bridging that gap into that space. But with the advent of cloud computing, that ability to go and take your software and put it in a world-class data center, host it and run it at professional levels is really coming down to the startup phase. And so one of the things we're adding to this Bizspark program is to give our Bizspark members up to $60,000, it's a big amount of money, of cloud computing time, so that you can take your solution and go and run it in a world-class data center and run it up there for a very long period of time. $60,000 gives you a lot of cloud computing, and give you the ability to compete with the likes of a Facebook or a Twitter if your idea is really that good. And so we're very excited about this ability. But don't wait, there's more. When we took a critical look at this about a year ago, and around about the time that we made the announcements, or that our country made the announcements around the Jobs Fund, we said, well, this is a very interesting opportunity. We have this program, we support over 300 startups, as I said. But when we looked critically at the program, we realized there were a couple of deficiencies. We realized that we weren't able, as Microsoft, and through giving our access to our software access to our startups, to deal with some of those other things that I showed you in the circle at the beginning. We weren't able to give them support on training. We weren't able to give them support on business management and business coaching. And we saw that those aspects, in many cases, as I said, were the failures of some of those startups, because they maybe had good ideas, they maybe had good product, but we weren't able to support them. And so what we did was we put in a proposal to the Jobs Fund, and we were awarded the provisional okay about in September last year, and we're busy with the contract negotiations right now. So I'm not able to say we absolutely have launched this, but I can say today that we're in the final throes of concluding the agreement with the Jobs Fund. And so what we're proposing to do with this is take the existing Bizspark program, work with our partners, and that's why we're speaking at the event today, work with the incubators in our country, work with the likes of Traction and some of our bigger incubators to take the Bizspark program, take the support from the Jobs Fund, and then apply these additional services that I'm talking about to our software startups. So we can really give our software startups a holistic set of offers that enable them ultimately to be more successful. The other real reason that we're doing this is, as I said at the beginning, we firmly believe in the innovation capacity of South Africa. And we also think that the economy of the country is starting to move more from a resource-based economy into a knowledge-based economy. And we think by doing this, we will ultimately create more jobs in the software industry, increase the viability of the software industry, and ultimately make the software industry ecosystem that much more bigger and make it more successful for our startups locally, but also on the global stage. And so that's really, in a nutshell, what I wanted to share with you today.